All right, welcome everybody. This is our 2024 edition of Swimming in College information for our swimmers here at Bowles. And we wanted to do something a little bit different this time. We're going to make a series of videos where we get together and talk a little bit through the process and some of the nuances and different topics as we go through it. And so we thought presenting it in a way of almost like an informal podcast. So you're going to get kind of the most raw, unedited, and simple version we can produce. So hopefully this is really informative, and you can always follow up with questions later. So I think everybody should know all the people on the screen, so I'm not going to bother with introductions. But we'll let Alexis ask questions, and we're all going to kind of go around and give the input you need to follow this process through and work from there. All right, Coach Alexis, you're up.
All right. So first question right off the bat. When do we need to start the recruiting process? What should my athlete be doing right now? And are we behind? And this would be coming from like maybe either a sophomore or junior year parent.
Okay, like I said, unedited. Jake, you have to go first.
I'll give it a shot. So, coming from a sophomore, junior year parent, there's not a big rush, but you're jumping into the process at the right time. I think it's always good to be ahead of the game and thinking about the process early. Freshman year of high school, it's a good thing to be just thinking about what I want to do post high school. Is college swimming a path that I want to follow? After that, sophomore year is when you want to start dialing it in and understanding what types of colleges, what types of conferences I might be interested in, slash what might be a good fit for me. So by the end of sophomore year, you want to have a list of, call it 10 to 20, maybe even 30 schools that might check your boxes as you understand so far, and use those as your list going into junior year on who you're going to communicate with and who you're going to target, and hopefully who will reach out back to you.
Can we lean in a little bit more on what we're talking about when we talk about are we behind? Because we get that question a lot. We have kids that decide that they want to sign or go to college, like especially their junior year or even their senior year. When is behind occur?
Well, I think most people are referring to behind simply means that it's in comparison to somebody else. So you get to feel behind when you see other people committing. When usually we ask that question, it's, well, I see a lot of other people committing, or the fear is you're going to lose your spot somewhere. Like some school is not going to have the right spot for you. So how we get ahead of that is making sure that we have a really accurate list of what good fits are as we get started, right? If you're looking only at schools that are a reach for you, and those schools are filling up quickly, there's a good chance that, yeah, you might miss out on that spot. But that doesn't mean you're behind because you're looking at the wrong target, right? If we pick the right targets to begin with, which is what Jake's process talked about, is making sure we have fits that are, athletically, academically, financially are a good fit for us, and we start pursuing those schools, we're going to know whether we have good options on the table by that junior, summer of your junior year. And after that point, you're not going to feel behind if you're targeting the right things. Where people feel behind is when they're trying to target something that's a reach, and they feel like it just keeps staying out of reach, and then we're not able to catch up there. So I think the comparison trap right there is really bad, and also just trying to guess at how many spots are. And those are really good things you got to ask a coach up front. Like, hey, what does the recruiting process look like for you? How many people are you planning to bring in this class? And what does that look like for you? How quickly do you anticipate that happening? And so you get an idea in those first couple conversations with a coach to kind of get a feel for what behind might be. Does that make sense? Did that answer it?
Yep, that was pretty good. All right. So now the next kind of piece is a little bit more about the parent role. So at that early stage, how much should a parent be involved in the recruiting process? And should we use a recruiting service? Like, is that something that is going to help us? Because we get all these emails from NCSA, Swim Intel. Claire, if you want to speak to your Swim Intel work that you've kind of looked at, that's one of the new services that's out, and what you've seen from there
Yeah, you
and
go
how
ahead.
that helps.
Okay. I mean, it's important for parents to remember that it's the swimmer's journey and it's their college.
Yeah.
Right. So, the swimmer should be kind of the driver when it comes to this. They should be the ones doing some of the research, looking at the schools. They should be the ones thinking about what they want out of their college experience. Parents should be there in more of a supporting role, maybe, helping with anything, technologically speaking, perhaps maybe, like, hey, mom, I'm struggling to figure this out. Can you help me out here? Helping with organizing trips. But generally more of a supportive role, not a driving role.
Yeah, I
So
would say Go ahead.
So should a parent email coaches on their swimmers' behalf?
Absolutely not. Oh, do not do that.
Yeah,
If I am a college coach and I get an email from a parent, I am immediately uninterested in that athlete. Like that shows me that that athlete is not able and capable of taking care of their own business. And I don't have no problem. Because you got to remember, a college coach is not going to, they're going to have almost no interaction with the parents other than as a fundraising opportunity maybe, or just simply an opportunity to meet and support them at meets. But there is like zero communication on the college front as far as parents go. So they're not interested in recruiting a parent. They're interested in recruiting the kid. So
I think that concept applies to the external resources too, right? If we are engaged with an external recruiting service, of course they can provide valuable insight and valuable guidance, but the actual process and the communication needs to come from the athlete themselves. If I'm a college coach and I receive communication on behalf of the student athlete from a parent, from an agent, I'm like, no, this kid cannot handle his own business. Think of all the external resources, including parents, resources, as tools in the toolbox for the student athlete's own process. It needs to be the student athlete using those tools to pursue their own process.
yeah, and I think real quick on the paid services front, like paid services, basically they can't do anything that you can't do yourself, right? So a paid service they're not going to get you into a school that you couldn't otherwise get into. All they can do is help you with the process in terms of sending more communication, handling more emails, maybe figuring out if you're a good fit at that school a little earlier or not. But other than that, there's not one that I know of that is able to actually open a new door for you. Now, again, they can simplify the process a little bit. They can do some of the legwork for you, which is valuable, but it also comes at a price. But so far, again, we have some families that have used them in the past and had good experience. We've had families that have used them and felt like there was no value there. So just keep in mind a recruiting service. So a service is going to help you put in touch with coaches. They're going to get all your information, put it into a form, and send it to a coach, the same as you would, right? The Swim Intel service is a paid service, but all that's doing is working with you to help you evaluate where your fit is. So we like that resource in terms of helping you understand where it goes. But other than that, like some of those paid recruiting services, again, they're not going to do something different than what you can't do yourself.
So let's talk about two services that you actually do need to use, starting with the NCAA Eligibility Center. Can we talk a little bit about what that means and why we have to do that and what timeline that needs to happen? Like how soon do I need to do that? Do I need to do the paid version? Can I just do an unpaid version? How do I find it? What's it for?
So really quick, I'll let Jake, I think you know how the paid version versus the unpaid version. I think you've dealt with it in the questionnaire a little bit more, but the purpose of the NCAA clearinghouse is to make sure that you are a student athlete eligible for NCAA competition, meaning you are not pro and you have certain academic requirements that are met. So basically that clearinghouse, what it's doing is making sure there's a central place where every student athlete in the NCAA is cleared to participate because they are academically eligible. They've done a certain number of academic credits and they're not accepting money as a paid pro athlete. Obviously that landscape is changing, but for right now, it doesn't matter. You need to go in there and make sure that you take like an amateurism questionnaire. And the answer is like, you are not nobody here at Bolles is a paid athlete. You might get a piece of equipment for juniors or whatever it is. That doesn't mean you're a paid athlete. You are not a pro athlete representing a brand or anything like that. So that's what the clearinghouse is for. And I think Jake, do you remember what some of the nuances were with signing up?
Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert in eligibility center stuff, but I always lean on the side of doing the paid version because I know that opens all doors to potentially pursue a scholarship at any level of NCAA competition. So if you do the paid version, then you've covered all your bases. There is a non-paid version. I believe that you're still able to be recruited and go to a Division III with the non-paid version. But if you do the paid version, you have all your bases covered.
There you go. Coach Alexis got it. I'm gonna look at it. Yeah, there you go. You're right.
Paid version is option 3. The unpaid version is option 2 that you need to do for Division III. This is 1 and 2. This one is 3. This one's just, to have.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, it's a place to collect things.
You want to go to Division 1 or 2 schools and be eligible for an athletic scholarship, you need to do Division III, right? And what's going to happen once you create that? There's going to be like when you take an SAT or an ACT, you can upload your results to there. Bolles will upload a transcript to that website to make sure you're academically eligible. But that is, no college is going to invite you on an official trip until you're cleared by the clearinghouse and you have a number in that system that they can use to look you up.
Yep. So now can we talk a little bit about SwimCloud and some things that you might want to do on SwimCloud to help your ID pop? And I'm going to pull up one that's not as exciting so we can talk about ways that, even though this athlete's already been recruited, ways that it could pop just a little bit more. So I'm picking on John because I know he won't mind. So one of the things when I look at a SwimCloud account is that you want to have a picture here that's a front-facing casual picture so that the coaches know what you look like. This is important for when they go do recruiting at meets, as well as when you come on a recruiting trip, because, you know, when we talk about recruiting trips a little bit later in our series, they're bringing in a ton of athletes. They need to know who you are, and they might not remember exactly your face. So it's helpful for them to have a face that they can recognize. And then up here at the top on the blue, you want to have either a picture of yourself swimming. Don't put a group picture up there because then they still can't tell who you are. It's kind of a little bit like dating online. You got to kind of make sure that they can see who you are. Maybe it's something you're interested in. It can be a beach landscape, somewhere that they can have like a conversation topic that can bounce off of that. And then when you go down here, just kind of taking a look and making sure that all of your details are correct. Sometimes like your team names might not be 100% right. Make sure that your affiliation's correct. And then when you log in on your athlete account, make sure that your contact information is on point. One of the things I sometimes suggest for athletes is to create a separate, if you've got a old email account like Fuzzy Rabbit 2222, create maybe a new I mean, if you want, from being a college coach, I can tell you that like that was whenever those came through, we were like, check this one out. Make sure you edit yourself, have a professional one, first name dot last name dot, I know, your goal time and a 500 free or something like that.
I would even throw a bonus in there. You can have a professional looking email signature on your phone that just has your name, your phone number, just some really basic stuff on every email, because a lot of these coaches are trying to do this on the fly. If they've got to pull up the last email they sent you, then get to your number at some point, makes it a lot easier to contact you. So just looking more like a professional adult when you go through this process is going to be really important. I think more and more college coaches are doing a good job of communicating via text and instant message and social media, but for the most part, they're all working off of email, and they're working through that process with, that professionalism in mind.
And that SwimCloud account, that's one of the things they're really leaning heavy on. And then lastly, for this series, so we can wrap up this edition of just kind of the beginning parts, can we talk a little bit about social media as part of how that works? You alluded to that as a way that social media, Claire, you're nodding your head. What would be some things that would be a red flag?
She has to answer this one because she doesn't have any.
Yeah. I know. She's the safe one.
Yeah, and there's a reason. I mean,
you can find her at Twitterless Claire. No, just kidding.
I don't exist.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so social media is obviously for athletes, for all the teenagers, almost all people, just a huge part of their lives at this point. And there are coaches who can reach out via like Instagram Instant Messenger, that kind of a thing. I don't know if people reach out via Facebook Instant Messenger, but
Snapchat before Facebook.
Yeah, I feel like if
we're hip
out on Snapchat, I think you should probably.
It has happened. It has happened regularly in the last year. People have been contacted on Snapchat.
So they're contacted via that way. However, that also means that then a college coach is getting into your social media profile in order to instant message you, which means they are seeing your social media. So it's important before you get started to also clean up your social media account. Like, if it's, you jumping off of a snowbank and landing on your head, college coach might think this person is into risky behavior. Are we sure we want them to?
I don't know. I think the NFL Player of the Year just had that all over his, but maybe I could be wrong. But
clean up that social media account.
Well, and let me add one more thing. Cleaning it up, meaning taking bad stuff off, is one thing. That should be a given no matter what. But the other side is if they're looking at your social media and all they see is pictures of you hanging out at the beach, all they see is pictures of you at parties or with other people, they don't see anything that shows that you're interested in athletics. Like, that is a primary way they're looking at who you are and what you're excited about. And if your social media has literally nothing to do with swimming at all, nothing about meets, nothing about, hey, I had a lot of fun here, hey, we're at the pool, like any of those kind of things, like it says a lot about who you are and who they are, because they're looking for people that are all in on their team. And I think, not to say that you need to have a social media post about everything you do in swimming, but if swimming isn't a major part of who you are in terms of like what you like to do, it should not be a part of your identity. And I don't want to get into that right now, but it doesn't, you don't need to put a profile out there that literally is all just pictures of you hanging out on the beach, right? If that's all they see, they're going to question whether you're really serious about the sport. And it's
Well,
important.
let's
And
take it one
what-
step. Like, your social media is your personal brand. And we're in a day and age of specifically college athletics where your brand is so valuable to, number one, recruiting process, but opportunities that are going to present themselves once you're in college and beyond. So creating that brand identity early in high school is one of the most valuable things you can do as a high school athlete. It doesn't mean you need thousands and thousands of followers. To Coach Peter's point, if you identify yourself as a high level swimmer, well, let your personal brand show that, right? If I visit your page, I want to know a little bit about you, and I'm going to feel like I know you better by visiting your Instagram, by visiting your Twitter. I should have a really good idea of the swimmer, of the person that's walking into my program.
And not even there, just also like when you're going to look for a job or an internship down the road, it's something that around that's something that when you apply for a job, they ask for your Instagram handle. They want to find you. And if you say, oh, I don't have social media, that's okay. It's not a negative. But also recognize that if you have a private Instagram or something like that, they're still going to find out what's on it. Like coaches will find that out because
Well,
there's
I don't want to make it seem big brother, but I know a lot of
no.
coaches ask to team members to friend them,
Mhm.
and then they'll use that to check the account.
Mhm.
They want to know about who you are and what you're doing, right? So if you have a
Mhm.
private account, so you can keep pictures from other people you don't want to see, and let's say you have some friends, it could even be a friend of a friend that has access to that. There's going to be ways they get to those pictures and they find out who you are.
And that can be a really good thing. It can also be something that can hurt you. So being aware of that, I think is the big thing. So if we were going to walk away, it sounds like there are 3 things that you can do right now. It's kind of get on that social media and SwimCloud, get your NCAA eligibility center together and start thinking about what that college process is going to look like, and just kind of starting to look at different schools and coming up with that idea.
I feel like we just real point of clarification on when we get started. It officially starts June 15th your sophomore year. You need to start before that, right? Your job as a sophomore is to start before that. We're starting to look at what colleges you're interested in. If you're just getting into the idea, hey, I want to swim in college your junior or senior year, that's fine. But you need to get on that. The first step is figure out what schools am I a good fit at, get an NCAA eligibility number, get a SwimCloud account. The steps are still the same. Just know that it officially starts June 15th after your sophomore year. So if you're a sophomore or a freshman, that's what you're working towards. If you're past that point and you want to swim in college, that's okay. The steps are still the same. Here at Bulls, we would want you to, once you get kind of that big list of 10 or 15 schools that you're interested in, we would like to see that as coaches. A text is fine. And also a draft of an email you want to send to college. We'll talk about that later, but that's kind of your first steps as far as those sophomores go.
Yep. Well, our next series is going to be on the different types of colleges, which will help sort of every athlete find where they can start creating that list of 10 to 12. All
Awesome.
right. Cool.
See you later.
Thanks.